Welcome to today's audiobook. We'll be diving into the fascinating and complex history of the 19th century Jihads in the Western Sudan, focusing on three major reformist movements: the Sokoto Jihad, the Massina Jihad, and the Tijani Jihad. These movements were not only about religious reform but also political, social, and military upheaval, reshaping the landscapes of West Africa. In this audiobook, we'll explore 1. The factors behind the success of the Massina Jihad. 2. The rise and eventual fall of Alhaji Omar's Tijani Jihad. 3. The interrelationship between these movements, highlighting common themes and significant differences. The Massina Jihad, 1818 to 1844. The Massina Jihad, led by Seku Ahmadu, also known as Ahmad Bari, emerged in the early 19th century as one of the key reformist movements in the Western Sudan. The jihad was successful for several reasons. 1. Religious factors. The groundwork for this jihad was laid by the Islamic scholar Al-Mukhtar, who had promoted the Qadiriyya Sufi order in Massina. His influence set the stage for a religious revival that inspired Seku Ahmadu's later jihad. Seku Ahmadu was also deeply inspired by the Sokoto Jihad, and he even received support and guidance from the Sokoto scholars, who helped him strategize and direct his movement. This support from the Sokoto Caliphate gave the Massina Jihad both legitimacy and intellectual direction. Additionally, the zeal of Ahmadu's followers, especially the Fulani, played a crucial role in the success of the jihad. The jihadist zeal for spreading Islam allowed them to gain support even among non-Muslim communities who were oppressed by their rulers. 2. Political and military factors. The political situation in Massina was unstable, and Ahmadu capitalized on the discontent of common people with the oppressive rule of local kings, similar to what happened in Hausaland. His victory was not only due to his military acumen but also the popular support from the oppressed masses who saw the reformers as liberators. Ahmadu's military campaigns were effective because many of the states he conquered were already militarily weak, like Sigu and Jen. His leadership was marked by decisive victories, including the capture of Jen and Timbuktu. 3. The Massina administration. Seku Ahmadu established a theocratic state, governed entirely by Islamic law or Sharia. His empire was a model of centralized governance, with a grand council of Muslim scholars that administered the state. Ahmadu took a direct role in overseeing the moral conduct of the population through a special department for public morals. The Massina state became known for its strict enforcement of Islamic law. The theocratic nature of Massina's governance, alongside its centralized structure, made it one of the most well-regulated Islamic states of the time. Despite this, it faced challenges of succession and external threats. Ahmadu's son, Ahmadu II, succeeded him peacefully, but after the reign of Ahmadu III, the empire eventually fell to the forces of Alhaji Omar in 1862. The Tijani Jihad of Alhaji Omar, 1854 to 1864. The third major jihad in the Western Sudan was led by Alhaji Omar, who came from the Futa Toro region and was deeply influenced by his travels and religious experiences. Omar's jihad was marked by his connection to the Tijaniyya Brotherhood, a Sufi order that promoted the equality of its members and sought to spread Islam in a more egalitarian manner than other Islamic orders, such as the Qadiriyya. Omar's background and motivations. Born in 1794, Alhaji Omar spent years traveling through the Middle East and Africa, gaining profound religious and political insights. His pilgrimage to Mecca and interactions with reformist movements like the Wahhabi revolt in Arabia, the Egyptian revolution under Muhammad Ali, and the Jihads in Sokoto and Massina inspired his own efforts back home in Futa Toro. His foundation of the Tijaniyya Brotherhood in Futa Jalan in 1838 began as a religious reform movement, but quickly became a military campaign to overthrow the existing rulers of the region. By 1854, Omar declared his jihad, backed by a disciplined army equipped with European firearms. Military and social factors. Omar's military campaigns were a direct challenge to the existing order, with initial successes leading to the overthrow of several Bambara states, including Sigu and Kata. His military prowess and the strong ideological appeal of the Tijaniyya Brotherhood helped him attract many followers. However, unlike the Sokoto and Massina Jihads, Omar's jihad faced significant challenges due to internal divisions, including resistance from the Qadariyya order and dissatisfaction among the conquered peoples who viewed the Tijaniyya soldiers as oppressive. The high-handedness of his troops, and Omar's dynastic leadership model, further weakened his empire after his death. Interrelationships among the three jihads. Sokoto's influence. Both the Massina and Tijani jihads were directly influenced by the Sokoto jihad of Usman Dan Fodio. Ahmadu and Omar were both inspired by Dan Fodio's example of reform and jihad, and Ahmadu even sent to Sokoto for a flag of authority before embarking on his jihad. Alhaji Omar, likewise, spent time in Sokoto, engaging with scholars and military leaders there before starting his own jihad. Similarities in the jihad leaders' ideals. All three movements shared common objectives in restoring Orthodox Islam, combating paganism, and establishing just governance based on Islamic principles. They aimed to rid their communities of the oppressive rule of local monarchs, hoping to replace them with more just, Islamic leadership. Leadership and administrative models. A major common feature across these jihads was the adoption of a highly centralized form of governance. Both Seku Ahmadu and Alhaji Omar mirrored Usman Dan Fodio's model of dividing the conquered regions into emirates under local rulers, amirs. While this worked during the lifetimes of these leaders, it became problematic after their deaths, with dynastic struggles and weak leadership undermining the stability of their empires. Ethnic and social tensions. The fact that all three leaders were Fulani also played a key role in the success and failure of their jihads. The Fulani identity provided a unifying force for the reformers, but it also created ethnic tensions with the local populations they conquered. The Fulani elite who led the jihads often found themselves in conflict with non-Fulani peoples, complicating their governance. In conclusion, the jihads of the 19th century Western Sudan, Sokoto, Massina, and Tijani were interconnected movements that reshaped the political and religious landscape of West Africa. They were driven by a shared desire to bring about religious reform, social justice, and better governance, but they were also marked by significant differences in leadership, ideology, and the eventual outcome of their empires. These movements were not simply about the imposition of religious law, they were responses to political, social, and military realities of the time, driven by the vision and leadership of figures like Usman Dan Fodio, Seku Ahmadu, and Alhaji Omar. Thank you for listening to today's audiobook. I encourage you to reflect on the interrelationships between these jihads and consider how their legacies have shaped the history of Islam in Africa and beyond. Please join us next week as we continue to explore the fascinating history of West Africa.